All right. Good morning, everybody. So we're back with another edition of Coffee and Closers. Of course, I'm here with Cesar.
What's going on, mi gente?
All right, guys. So we're ready to get started. So we have an interesting topic today.
Yeah.
We're talking about appraisals, county appraisals. Now, most of you guys probably have already received your notice about I know that I received it last week or this past week. The county said, hey, this is what your new home value is. And so that's always concerning because what happens, especially in a rising market, an appreciating market like it is today, more than likely than not, your home's value goes up. And what happens when your home's value goes up? Your taxes go up. So
then your mortgage payment goes up. I think that's one of the biggest things that some people don't understand. The year starts, every company that does a mortgage, that maintains the mortgage is going to do an escrow review every single year. And there's usually two things that could change on it, right? There's your taxes, and then there's your insurance. If your insurance goes up or your taxes go up, your escrow collection is going to be short, and therefore you're either going to have to pay the difference to make it up, or they're going to readjust your payment so that you make it up over the course of that year.
That's right, because they have a special calculation. So insurance or mortgage companies have a special calculation. And what they do is they're required to have so many months in advance so that when it does come for renewal, it does come time, they have sufficient funds. And so they do a calculation. Again, they have to have a certain percentage or certain number of months of prepaid taxes and insurance. And when you're short of that, they come knocking on your door. You get a nice little bill. Now, the good thing is you have two options. You can either pay upfront the shortage, or your mortgage payment increases and you pay off the amounts that way. So you have two options that way. Right now you get to decide. And I think a lot of people have gone up there. My personal experience, my property value went up.
Got it.
Went up this year. It didn't go up. Now, every year, if you're a homeowner, and you have your homestead exemption, you are maxed out at 10%. So your home value cannot go up higher than 10%. And if you have an investment property or a second property that's not protected by homestead exemption, hey, sky's the limit. Whatever the county deems is, that's what it's going to increase for. But if you're a homeowner and you've got your homestead exemption, if you bought your home last year, make sure you file for your homestead exemption. You still have time to do it so that your taxes don't go up, right? And you'll be protected under 10%. So my house got lucky. Did not go up 10% this year. But in any case, what about you? How's yours looking?
So this year actually it went down, but we fight it every year. So I always recommend that you fight it every year, and I recommend that you shop your insurance every year because you want to always make sure you have the best rates and that your appraisal district taxable value is the lowest possible. So I know the previous year, 2022 was crazy, right? And what ultimately happened was 2023 rolled around and the 2022 value going into 2023. And now, it pretty much bloomed, and mine went up $60,000 in that transition. This year we fought it again. And because now the comparables that we can turn in actually show a little bit of leniency of not overpaying anymore, it dropped 30,000 this year. So I'm grateful for that. We also didn't have our homestead registered because it was owned through our company at one point, and it's now owned personally, so we qualify for homestead. So this year should be a really good year for us. And going into next year, I can see our escrow account being reduced so that our payment is lower too.
Okay, so you were on both ends on one property. You were both ends. You were on the, hey, it's owned by a company, so second property, and not homestead exemption protected. And so it went up. Now you're protected. Now you can get to benefit out of that, right?
Yes.
So perfect. Yeah, we didn't fight it last year. Big mistake. We fought it the previous year. We didn't win. Again, we're in an appreciating market. We don't know if we're going to win or not. It's still worth it. Take it from my experience when I didn't do it last year. It's still worth the fight. Still worth filing that exemption. If you guys don't know how to do it, we have worked with different companies that can definitely help you, or we can help you, guide you, get you in the process. If you're a do-it-yourself or want to do it yourself, we can get it done. We can guide you to where you can get it done. At least begin the process. There's always companies out there that can help you with that as well. But fight it all the time. Even if it goes up a little bit, fight it all the way, because you want that baseline to be as low as possible.
And the way, if you want to know kind of the difference between doing it yourself and having a company do it, cost wise, most of these companies will not charge you up front to fight it for you. Ultimately, the way they make their money is if they save you whatever X amount of dollars, right, on what you would have paid in taxes, then you pay them 25 to 35% of what they saved you once all the work is done and the new amount got reduced. That's when they charge you.
Okay.
After they've done their work.
Okay.
If you do it on your own, it's more work, more research, and you don't have to pay that fee. So then at the end of the day, you just save on your tax money.
Yeah, and then again, if you need any help with that, if you're going to do it yourself, but you need some comparable sales comparables, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to provide those for you.
Yeah.
Just send us the address, and we'll be able to provide that. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, and go ahead and do it. And again, you get to save a little bit of money. You get to learn a lot. It's a learning experience, but you definitely get to save that money. And so the other question that comes up with appraisal district is that it's a funny thing because as homeowners, you want your county appraisal to be as low as possible.
Yep.
Like you want that number to be low. But what happens when it comes to sell? Time to sell. You want that number to be a lot higher. And a lot of people ask us is like, why is there such a difference between what the county is appraising it for and then what you could actually sell it for? And so what's your take on it?
So I always tell people, well, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? If that home is currently owned by the same person that has owned it for 10, 20 years, there's a limit to how much they're allowed to increase the appraisal amount every year, which is capped at 10%, at least in Harris County. But at the end of the day, they can't raise it to keep up with the market if it's homesteaded, right? So that's one thing to notice too, is it might be low and you fought it. Like you said, we've been fighting it every year. So we know the market, it could sell for more, but we don't want to pay taxes on the amount that it could sell for. We want to pay taxes on like what it's actually worth to the appraisal district.
That's right.
So that's one reason that it's different is the homeowner fights it and it's capped to how much they can raise it. And at the end of the day, one thing to know, because you know that, is when you buy a home, it's switching owners. It's not capped that year. So if you bought it for way more than what the appraisal value is, be ready for the appraisal district to raise that taxable value the following year based on what you bought it for. And therefore, your tax rate, or not your tax rate, but your taxable dollar amount might change because now the rate is charging against a higher value.
Yeah. So what you're saying, in other words, what you're saying is because you were protected as a homeowner and had your homestead exemption, it wasn't allowing the appraisal district to catch up to the market value, especially in appreciation in the last couple of years where we've seen 15, 20% in some neighborhoods, 20% appreciation. And when they were capped, well, they were still a lot higher. And then finally, when you do sell it, you do turn it over.
Yep.
It gives the county a chance to catch up to the market value. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And so the other thing is why is it sometimes lower than the market value? Well, the county, when they appraise it, they don't actually visit your home. So if you've done any improvements inside your home to raise the market value, for example, if you added a brand new kitchen, if you've done remodeled, that adds value to your home in tens of thousands of dollars. Well, when the county sees it, they don't actually go into your home. The county just drives by and they see you haven't done any additions, which could potentially change the county appraisal. But if you've done no additions and the only thing you've done is remodeled and improved the market value, well, the county doesn't know. So it keeps it lower than what it actually is, right? And so your neighborhood may increase in value, especially if you've done remodels to the kitchen, to the bathroom, to the major areas, right? If you do those remodels, your market value is gonna go up. County doesn't know. So they don't charge you for that. They don't increase the value on that. So that's another reason why sometimes the discrepancy is there, is that the county may think you still have a 1970s kitchen. They don't know. They don't know that you've got marble countertops and,
new cabinets,
and, state of the art.
I think that's why sometimes people get upset with how strict the permitting process is, right? And there's always a money grab, which I agree is there's a portion of it that's just for a money grab. but it's also the county's way to know what kind of work you're doing on your house so that they can adjust the value based on that work. But if it's cosmetic, where you change the floors, you did new countertops, something you don't need a permit for, they're never going to know that. Although I recently heard from someone that works for an appraisal district that if they question something or they want to know, they're starting to look at your social media, things like that, where if you posted pictures of your new cool kitchen, your new floors, they might know at that point because they could tie it to you. And they've started to have systems that automate those searches to be able to know if you've done some of those renovations, but it's at its infancy. So in the future, they might know.
All right. So that's a interesting tip of the day right there. So you do anything to your house, don't post it on social media. Just bring people over to the house, but make sure they don't post it on social media.
Send it in the group chat.
Yeah,
Send it in the group chat.
Yeah, put it in the disappearing messages. Don't put it on social media. So if you do anything to your house, you don't want the county to know. So that's a way for them to go inside your house without going inside your house.
Without going inside your house. Now you can always fight it, because at the end of the day, they how can they really prove that that's your house in there? And you live there, but that you could just say it's a friend's house. But so I think with time there'll be a little more maybe rules to how they can access that info and what they can actually use. But right now it's a free game. Like there's not a lot of regulation around that. So
now what things they can easily find out is if you do additions with the square footage. If you just even an aerial shot of the house, is the footprint has gone up. Right. Yep. Those are things. You put a pool. That's an easy catch, right? They don't have to. They can drive by and possibly see that. So those things are going to add value to the house.
A porch,
additions.
If you're putting up a little back kind of like gazebo area, but like a really nice one with the cement flooring for having the family over for big gatherings, the way you would see it at a park. They'll add value for that, even if it's incomplete. All they're seeing is a slab of this wide by this long. That adds this much value. Yeah. You can never finish it, but that little slab is going to add some value to your property.
Yeah, so you might as well finish it off.
Finish it.
And so some of the tips that you can do when you're fighting on this, we'll end up with that. So I want to ask you for 3 tips how to keep when you're fighting. 3 tips on keeping your property values low with the county.
All right, we'll start with the top tip, at least in Harris County. I've never fought property values outside of Harris County, but Harris County now has an e-file. Thank you, COVID, for allowing a lot of things to go online with the city, because they did it before and you had to do paper everything, so it was just harder. Now they have an e-file process, and because they got an e-file process, they got an overload of people that are always fighting now. And so from the companies that I've worked with, a little tip they gave me is that sometimes you fight it, e-file it just to fight it, because they're so overloaded that sometimes they'll just not prioritize those. They'll just accept it or give you some kind of break just to get you out of the queue and move on to the next person. So if you can e-file it, that's probably the best thing you can do, because you have a high chance of them just accepting it without you ever having to really fight your case too much.
Got it.
So that's what I would say tip number 1 is. Tip number 2, like we said, try not to post a lot of what you've done on social media, because as much as it gives us, that dose, right, of what we need, because people are telling us how great of a job we did, it also puts it out there for other people like the county to see what you've done to the home. And then the third tip I said a little bit earlier was, for as far as your mortgage goes, make sure you always fight it and make sure you always shop your insurance.
Oh, shop your insurance. Okay. And so I've got 3 tips on my end. So number 1 is when you're going to enlist the help of a realtor if you're going to do it yourself and you're going to look for some sales comparables, definitely want to compare the fixtures in the house that they're comparing it to. For example, if one house has an updated kitchen, yours doesn't yet, and that's one to say you can take to the county and say, hey, that one is valid at that price because it has an updated kitchen or updated bathrooms. Mine doesn't. So that way, it's another way to fight it. Number 2 is when you're looking at sales comparables, you want to make sure that you get the house, and this is when you're looking for the lowest price possible, right? And you're like saying, okay, I need the house that's sold for the lowest amount of price so that I can go ahead and compare that. And number 3, This one's going to be pretty difficult. Is enlisting the help of someone else. And I get it, for do-it-yourselfers, that might not be an option, but these are professionals that do it day in and day out. So number 3 is, if you get stuck to a certain point, hire the professional help. Again, you can always ask Cesar and myself for referrals, or we can definitely help you with the sales comparables on that end.
And what's cool is we kind of goes against a little bit what I said, right? If you can e-file it.
Yes.
Right? But I think the important thing there is, if you're not good with technology and you really don't want to do that work, so you're just gonna, do it halfway, then hire the pro, because they're probably gonna dispute it and get you a better return on your money than if you do it. But I think that's kind of cool that we both have a little bit of a different viewpoint there. It kind of goes together, but it just goes to show that we have 2 different views, and at the end of the day, there's not one right solution.
No, there isn't, and that's the thing, is that there's do-it-yourselfers out there who would love going into and deep dive into the research and finding out all that, and there's individuals like me who I am not a do-it-yourselfer. For a lot of things. When I book a holiday trip, I'd rather put it off to a travel agent. Yes, I still use a travel agent. Rather, I'm not going to sit in Expedia and go through it. So we want to make sure that we reach both people. People who are do-it-yourselfers, do the e-file, do your own research. If you're not a do-it-yourselfer and you attempted to do it, there's companies out there that can do the background work. Yes, you're going to have to pay for it, but then at the end of the day, peace of mind and is worth a lot. So having said that, all right. So now the other question that we were talking about, we can go into quickly. There's a lot of people still moving to Houston.
Yeah.
From out of the country. I mean, out of state, right?
Both. Yeah. Both.
Yeah, out of country, out of the state. But one of the questions that I get asked, especially people coming from the Northeast, and you lived in the Northeast for a little bit.
Boston.
In Boston. But I don't know how to say it. I have a Texan accent. I'm never going to be able to do that. But so one of the questions that I get, especially people coming from the Northeast, is that say, hey, I want to live in a walkable neighborhood. Now, this is Houston. If you're a lifelong Houstonian, that's an interesting question, right? A walkable neighborhood. And we're not like the Northeast. We have huge neighborhoods. And so what I always want to do is we do have walkable neighborhoods, but not in the sense that perhaps Northeasterners have. And so I want to talk a little bit about that difference. So when we talk about walkable neighborhoods in Houston, we're talking about the communities outside where they have trails, jogging trails, large sidewalks, bike trails, many amenities, parks where you can easily walk to those things, and it's definitely walkable. You've got sidewalks, you've got trails, right? That's what we consider here walkable. Now, coming from the Northeast, what was your opinion of walkable neighborhoods?
I think people like to say walkable, and it's almost intermixed with bikeable too, because not just in the Northeast but the Midwest, it was very similar, where a lot of people do ride their bikes to work. Everything's a little bit more congested, so it's not, the distance isn't here. And I was talking about this with a friend recently, where I was like, yeah, I just drove, it was about an hour away. I was like, but an hour in Houston could be like 60 miles, yeah. Whereas a mile or an hour in one of those cities could be 10 miles, because everything's just so congested. Traffic moves a lot slower. We get traffic here too, but we're usually moving at least some like 30 miles an hour at least. It's very rare that we're at a dead stop, right? So I think because people there were used to being able to a short drive to the grocery store. Trader Joe's was big over there. Whole Foods was big over there. Yeah. And you're seeing those pop up a lot more over here. So it's more like, it meant that you can get somewhere pretty quick. And if it wasn't that quick, you could at least jump on your bike and get there. And I have noticed, like you said, spreading out in the outer sides of Houston, they're building that a little more. And what I've seen is they're starting to connect some neighborhoods too, where a neighborhood might have, a walkway behind the neighborhood. Then there's a street, which is the next neighborhood. And they're now creating crosswalks there and like interconnecting some of those. So it's where you can kind of jump from a neighborhood to another neighborhood. Yes. On your bike or walking without ever having to go on a main road.
Yeah, and that's what we consider walkable here in in Houston. And so the other thing the other definition that I've encountered with walkable is that they want to get out the front door and within a block or two, run into a coffee shop, go to the grocery store. Now, in my neighborhood, I live in a great neighborhood. I'm biased, I get that. But in order for me to get to my grocery store, it's about 2 miles and probably more because I have to walk. Suburbs, they're not exactly, nice straight lines. So you have to get out of your neighborhood and go walk. So it's about 2 miles for me to get to the nearest restaurant, coffee shop, grocery store. And so definitely not what I consider walkable. They want to go, I'm at the door. I see across the street, there's a bar, or a block down the street, there's a coffee shop. I can go to the grocery store. I can hop on a quick little bus ride down to the street. And those are considered walkable.
Like, I don't need a car.
I don't need a car. That's what they want. They don't need a car. I can do it on public transportation or just walking whatsoever. Now, outside in the suburbs, likely not going to happen. There are probably some neighborhoods that are popping up, especially if you live closer to the commercial centers. But outside in the suburbs, not likely.
No, very likely.
Yeah. And inside the city of Houston, there's only a few couple of pocket neighborhoods that may have that. I can think of, we're in the Heights, certain parts of the Heights where you can go and, cross the street, and on the street, you have a ton of bars to go to, or coffee shops or restaurants to go to. The grocery store is not that far. What other neighborhood do you think would be considered walkable in that sense?
Remember, I really like that big Memorial Park center there. Not the neighborhood itself isn't as walkable, but they have that big walking path all the way around.
That's down the street?
Yeah.
It's down the street, yeah. So the Rice Military. Rice Military.
Yeah, Rice Military. They have tennis courts there. They have country clubs. So it's a lot of access to outdoor athletic type of events, type of facilities. And you could just cross the main road to get to some of the homes that are across the street. But I could tell you a good example of when I first moved to Houston. When I was in Boston, even in Chicago, I would ride the bike. My road bike with these little skinny wheels to the gym. I'd run, I'd lift weights, I'd get on my bike, ride back home. Over here, I tried that. And because there's so much gravel and there's not really a bike lane on a lot of the roads that we have, I would ride out a mile or two and my tire would go flat. I'd have to fix it to the point where it flatted out so many times that I had to call an Uber to pick me up and just take me home.
Defeats the purpose.
It defeats the purpose. So also I would say adding into it is more bike lanes on the streets, which you see in the city a little more. But once you leave the city, bike lanes don't exist.
No, they don't. And so if you haven't been kept up with the news, which is funny you brought that up, is that the Mayor Whitmire has been on the news right now is because they are eliminating, just right outside where we're at right now, they are eliminating some of the bike lanes. We're on Washington Avenue. So if it's important to keep the city bikeable, at least bikeable, because you're right, Rice Military and the Heights is an extremely bikeable area where you can get to your grocery store, you can get to restaurants, bars, coffee shops, and you have access to Memorial Park all within a 15-minute, 10-minute bike ride. That's really important to keep that type of environment here in Houston. It's extremely important. And to grow it. There's other neighborhoods out there that have the potential to be bikeable and walkable. And it's something that we definitely would appreciate here. And I know that my clients who come from the Northeast or the Midwest, that's what they ask for. That's their definition of a walkable area. Now, if you want more space and all that, the suburbs, again, walkable, absolutely, because they have the trails, they have the sidewalks and the amenities. You're just not going to walk to the grocery store.
Yeah,
it's a trek.
You can.
You can. In this heat, probably not.
Maybe if you're David Goggins.
Yeah, if you're David Goggins, you're not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna matter, right?
You're carrying all your groceries back home, running.
Hey,
one trip.
That's a workout, right? I mean, if you want to work out or you start working out for that type of marathon, then go all for it. But from my door to the nearest grocery store, it's a little bit over 2 miles. It's the same neighborhood. It's a huge neighborhood, but that's the way Houston is. But so what do you guys, I'm curious to know, do you guys think of any, can you guys think of any neighborhoods that are walkable? What do you guys consider walkable? Do you guys want that? More of that? That's my question.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what our viewers think and what they want to do as far as what changes they'd like to see. Or if you're from somewhere like the Northeast or the Midwest where it's a lot more walkable, what are the differences that you see here? Because it has changed some from when I got here. And I've been here for over 10 years now. So it's a lot has changed in 10 years. I'd like to know what you guys see and what you think the differences are from where you came from to what you see here.
Yeah, and have opinions on what could change. What are the changes that need to be done to make Houston more walkable, more bikeable, and enjoy that part of it. So, all right, guys. So that is pretty much what we want to talk about. So we talked quite a bit. Talk about county appraisals and market value.
Yep.
Again, if you guys need help with that, just let us know. We'll help out that. And then we definitely want to know, what are your walkable neighborhoods or your favorite bikeable neighborhoods in Houston? Know any? Or what are your suggestions to make Houston more walkable? All right, guys. Talk to you guys soon.
Talk to you next time.
All right.